Thanks so much for joining us here on the Daily Racing Form YouTube. I'm Gino Buccola alongside David Aragona. We're just a week out from Christmas. We've got a Christmas-themed stakes race we're going to take a look at here with the Poinsettia over at Oaklawn Park. Let's dive on in and take a look at this field, David. So we have fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up, sprinting 5.5 furlongs, the very short distance of 5.5. We have 2 pages here as it's a field of 12. But Spirit Wind, who is a multiple graded stakes winner, feels like the kind of the class of the field, the horse they'll all have to beat. But she's certainly no cinch. We've seen her defeated at short prices even recently, but just kind of on resume, she feels like the most accomplished in here.
She definitely does. She was cross-entered by Saffie Joseph in the Sugar Swirl on Saturday at Gulfstream Park, where Saffie entered, I think, 5 of the 7 runners, but I believe she's expected to scratch from that race, so likely to run here instead, and if she does start, she is the horse to beat, but she has plenty of other speed to contend with towards the front end.
So we'll take a look at the Timeform US pace projector here, and we can see a horse like Asternia, we know, is very, very quick. High class, wired this field last year in the Poinsettia, was a winner of that race. I mean, you go up and down the field, there are at least 3 or 4 pretty quick horses. I mean, the 2 drawn down to the inside, it wouldn't be shocked to see Holly, Dolly, or Fibber showing a little bit of earlier speed, even though they're a little farther back on the pace projector. So I think they'll be going pretty quick in here, David.
Yeah, those first 5 runners, the 8, 7, 3, 11, and 10, they all are horses that do their best running towards the front end. Even the horse shown in 5th, Miss Buccola, is a horse that likes to be out winging, typically in slower fractions that she's likely to face in this 5.5 furlong stakes on Saturday. So it's going to be interesting to see if some things come apart for a couple of the closers.
As we meet the field here for the Poinsettia, remember, you can get this shirt just like this as a great Christmas gift if you're looking for someone last minute. We also have those great Daily Racing Form gift cards if you're doing your last minute holiday shopping. You know, you can get somebody set up with past performances, clocker reports for the next few months. Let's make some money in this 9th race, David. Let's start with Fibber. I had such a tough time getting a read on this one. As a stakes winner, multiple graded stakes placed, her ceiling is about as high as anyone's in this race. I think right there along with Spirit Wind. She was a little disappointing in that race at Mahoning Valley last time out. Prior to that, she did have back-to-back races where she was graded stakes placed. What do we think about Fibber in this spot?
I do wonder a little bit if she's a horse that just got really good off the claim for Chris Hartman, which we've seen happen before. He's a barn that's very potent with recent claims because she won those first 2 stakes after being claimed for $100,000, including the Audubon over Tarifa. But she was facing some pretty tough company in those 3 subsequent losses, the likes of My Main Squeeze, Emery, a very talented 3-year-old filly sprinter. And even last time in that stakes at Mahoning Valley, you might want to scoff at that field based on where the race was run, but you look through the also-rans in that race, they had all run some fast speed figures in the past, and I don't think it was a big disgrace that she finished 5th that day, even though she was bet down to even money. That probably wasn't a fair price on her, or reflective of the quality of field she was facing. I just think she's supposed to get a good trip in this race, saving ground along the inside. She's not some deep closer that has to come from last, but she figures to be somewhere in mid-pack and picking up the pieces if the speed comes back.
Yeah, I think for me, price with her is real key. Is it all the time? But if she is in that like 7 to 2 above range, that's probably fair. If she gets bet down a little bit, I probably want to demand a little more value on her. Next up, it's the very sharp Holly Dolly, who has won 5 in a row. This is a multiple stakes winner who comes off of winning the Zia Distaff last time out, rattled off 4 wins at Remington, and then went over to Zia, beat a horse named Olivia Twist, who was the heavy favorite that day. So Holly Dolly kind of gets an acid test here, steps up and will face a little tougher and see where she stacks up.
Yeah, it does feel like it's a pretty significant step up in class. She really wasn't facing company like this in those 4 wins at Remington. Even last time, that stakes race at Zia, just horses that aren't running quite as fast as the foes that she's going to meet here. She's drawn well towards the inside. She's got good tactical speed, doesn't need to be in front. I just question whether she's this good.
The 3 high class was last year's Poinsettia winner, but she's 0 for 3 since. She really hasn't been close, but I can make some excuses for those races, David. I mean, one of them was on the turf. The 2 of them were on the turf. The other one was on a muddy sealed racetrack. The concern that I have with her in this spot isn't really her talent or her ability to get back and run a good race on the dirt. It's just the other speed that we talked about. She's pretty quick. She seems one-dimensional, and she'll probably have speed on both sides of her in here. So while I respect her ability and I think she'll run better in this race, I had a hard time putting her up towards the top because I'm just worried about the trip she gets here.
I think we took a very similar view of High Class, and here's the replay of her winning this very race a year ago, doing so in gate to wire fashion. It's just hard to see her pulling this exact same trip
Yep.
in this spot with so much other speed to her outside. And while I agree with you that, I mean, her recent form looks poor, but she's probably been in some of the wrong spots. I don't know why they ran on Turk twice, even though she was facing some tough horses in there, just didn't really show up in those races. Now coming off the layoff, getting back into the right kind of conditions, I just think there are other fast horses in here that are going to make her life very difficult.
Laura's Charm is next up. She stakes placed on the turf. She beat non-winners of 3 at Churchill Downs 2 starts back, and then she went to the turf over at Keeneland. But she does seem like one of the longer shots in here.
Yeah, a little hard to make a case for this one. She did win going this distance on the dirt two back at Churchill, but that was against a slightly weaker field than she's meeting here. She's just never really run a dirt speed figure that puts her in the conversation.
Next one up is the number 5, Dealing Justice. She actually used to be in New York. Her first few wins came in New York. She just seems like she hasn't been quite as good since like around 2022 when she was doing some of her best racing over in New York. Is there anything that can kind of wake her up or maybe get her to show some improvement and get back to some of those earlier races?
Yeah, it just feels like this 6-year-old mare has seen better days. I mean, there was a time when she was capable of running speed figures that would give her an outside chance at here. And while she did outrun her odds in her most recent start when she was in for the $50,000 tag in an optional claiming race, she was just kind of picking up the pieces, saving ground every step of the way, and is stepping up against a much tougher field where she would have to run faster from a speed figure standpoint.
Next one up is the number 6, Pistol, who I thought's a little bit sneaky in here. She comes off a third place finish where she was behind Mystic Pleasure and Uppercase. Those two horses came back to finish 1-2 in a $300,000 stakes race at Churchill Downs next out. When you look at her overall form, she hasn't been in a bunch of stakes and graded stakes races, but she has been facing horses that are those types of runners. The two that I just mentioned, another one named Clearly Unhinged, who you see that her rival Spirit Wind defeated a couple starts back. So when I'm looking at her, I think she's the type of horse who might be able to outrun her odds in here. The top two separated. I could see her sitting in a good spot and maybe just kind of falling into a nice trip at a very fair price. So I thought she was a little bit interesting in here at a price. David, talk to us about Pistol.
Yeah, I get where you're going with her because it's kind of easy to envision her working out the right trip in this race, given the way we think the pace is going to play out. I question how good she really is because I wasn't thrilled with the quality of the field that she beat two back at Churchill. And while she did keep good company in the last race, she was kind of no match for those two horses. She did have to alter course in upper stretch and maybe could have been a half length or a length closer to them at the wire, but she was never really finishing better than third in that race. So I think she would need a slight step forward, but maybe if this race comes apart, she's going to be in the right place to take advantage.
So the number 7, Spirit Wind, did the old familiar Lone Star to Saratoga double a little earlier this year. We don't see many horses doing that, winning a stakes race at Lone Star, heading over and winning a race in the grade 2 at Saratoga. Last few starts, hasn't been able to get into the winner's circle, but the race 2 starts back at Keeneland and was very good in the TCA when finishing second that day behind Zetlos, and then lost to a horse named Uppercase who had turned the tables on some of their rivals in the Dream Supreme last time out. I mean, she fits well. She's probably going to be in the mix here late. She just isn't the most exciting horse to play at what'll probably be like even money or so in here.
Yeah, she's probably going to take a lot of money going out for the barn that she does, shipping into to Oaklawn here. This is her race 2 back in the TCA when she was second to Zeitlos, who is a very nice horse. Didn't hit the board in the Breeders' Cup in her next start, but had been consistent for trainer Steve Asperson and got a good trip coming up the rail to beat Spirit Wind on this day. Spirit Wind feels like a horse that should appreciate the 5.5 furlongs because, I mean, she's tried to go as long as 7 a couple times this year, and you could see that's just way too far for her. So I think she's the kind of horse that should appreciate this distance. And I will say her last race, not as bad as it looks when you see that she lost, finishing third as the even money favorite. She kind of hopped up at the start and was off about a length slowly in that race. And for a speed horse like her to break last in the field, that's just never going to work out. So it's actually a credit to her that she ran as well as she did to get up for third that day. She seems to be in good form, and I think she's dangerous, but like you said, not likely to get much price here.
Yeah, I agree. And watching her last race, it was one of those races where, based on the shape, she really didn't have much of a chance. Like, she was just behind the 8 ball all the way around. And I was actually impressed that she showed the ability. I don't know how far she wants to be off the pace, but she can sit a little bit, I think, at 5 furlongs, especially, and probably pass a couple horses late. So, does feel like the one to beat in here. One of the quicker horses in this race, I think Timeform US had right up front, was Asternia, who is grade 2 placed. She'll make her second start back after a 5-month break. So, at the very least, one of the main speeds in here.
Definitely. I mean, I would say she's drawn well outside, except there's other fast horses outside of her as well. There's just so much speed in this race. So I wonder if she's going to get caught in that crush a little bit as horses are vying for the front end in the early stages, because she's one that doesn't really seem like she has that gear to sit too far off the pace. She kind of needs to be in the mix to have her best chance. I do think that she's run some nice races this year, particularly that third in the 8 bells going 7 furlongs, which is probably a bit too far for her. And I thought she got a nice prep in last time at Churchill. I would want to like her in this race if there was just a little bit less speed signed on.
I agree. I've used her a few times in the past, but I just don't know if the race shape is best for her today. Makeup will make her first try versus Stakes Company. She spent 5 of her 7 races on the turf, and then 2 of them on an off track. She won an off the turf race last time out. She's lightly raced. She has some upside. I think it just comes down to how good is she? How good are some of the horses that she's been facing?
Yeah, she's run some of her better numbers on the turf. At least she's shown that she can come from off the pace. She did that last time. I mean, she was sitting right in behind the leaders along the rail, scooted up the inside to get the victory that day. The buyer of 77 was pretty light, but you can look through some of the runners that she beat, like Top Gun Girl and Current Climate, and say that they've been capable of running some faster speed figures in the past. So maybe that number could be a little bit higher. And she's likely to get the right setup in here. Like you, I question if she's quite this good, but I suppose she's a candidate to pick up some pieces.
Miss Buccola was a last out stakes winner on a muddy track at Laurel, and she's faced softer through the bulk of her career, but she likes to win races. She's 7 for 14, and she has 3 more exacta finishes. So 10 of her 14 races, she's been in the top 2. She certainly knows where the wire is.
Yeah, these are connections that don't often ship for a race like this, and bringing in the local jockey from Maryland to ride in this race. So at least Xavier Perez knows Miss Bucero, having ridden her to victory last time. Just feels like this is going to be a tough ask for a horse that likes to be forwardly placed, has been generally facing some slightly weaker competition than she's going to be meeting here, and is drawn outside. I worry that she's going to get hung wide in this race. So I had trouble making a case for her, but she has run some nice races in the past.
I wanted to get to Girls Weekend in here. I was trying to make a case for this lightly raced horse. I'm just a little worried about the trip she gets. When you go through some of the horses she's faced, though, you see Nick Style, who is 5 for 6, Vermont, a horse named Benedetta, who's actually won 3 in a row since finishing behind Girls Weekend, including beating Fibber most recently over at Mahoning Valley. I'm just worried about the trip with her, David. I think she's a horse who kind of fits pretty well. I wouldn't be shocked to see her run well in here. I'm not sure if she wants to sit 3 or 4 lengths off the pace till she really shows us she can do that. So what do you think about the 11 Girls Weekend?
Yeah, it's just kind of too easy to envision her getting hung 5 wide as they make that bend into the far turn, because there are about 4 or 5 horses inside of her who are going to be gunning for the front end like she is, and she hasn't shown that dimension to sit a little further off the pace and be successful. I did think she kicked on pretty gamely last time when she was beating first level allowance competition, but that was a much weaker field than this one, and now she's got the disadvantage of this wide draw. I just feel like there are things that she has to overcome.
Feels like a really good spot for Royal Spa to be passing a lot of horses in here. I think she fits with this class level pretty well. I like her running style for this group. I'm just a tad concerned she may be a little too far back going 5.5 furlongs early on. So I'm going to use her more as an underneath type, but she's stakes placed. She's going to make the 3rd start of her form cycle, and she will come closing here, David. She just needs to not get stopped when they're asking her, and she'll probably be rolling late.
Yeah, I mean, she feels like a great candidate to, at the very least, hit the board in this race, because she fits the race profile so well, and she's so consistent, coming in off a couple of placings against some tough company, including the grade 3 winner Sheeta Booty 2 back, and then last time chasing home the extremely talented 2 Sharp, who just dominated that Chaluki. A mile probably too far for Royal Spa. The 5.5 might be a little bit sharp for her, but given the pace scenario, it's going to help to bring her into the race. The problem with her is you've got to take a relatively short price on a horse who's never run faster than an 83 buyer. A little light for this field. I think she's going to really need the speed to come back if she's going to win this race.
Yeah, so we both will take a little bit of a shot when we move to our selections now. I'll take a bigger swing, looking for a price with the number 6 pistol. So 6, 7, 12, 3 for me. We'll both use the 7 and the 12 as sort of the horses to beat in the second and third spots. David, talk to us a little bit more about Fibber.
Yeah, we both agree Spirit Wind is the horse to beat in this race. I just thought Fibber was the right alternative. I kind of agree with you. She's likely to be the second choice in this race. I don't think she'll be quite as high as the 9-2 morning line, just because she's got some of the best speed figures coming in here. She's supposed to trip out from the inside, and I like the company that she's been keeping lately, so she was the one that I wanted.
Good luck this weekend out at Oaklawn Park, and don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel below for daily racing form.